Hello, I am Claudia Posts. I'm going to give you a presentation on how Capgemini Netherlands and Perceptive Software joined forces to implement ImageNow for our HR department. First, let me tell you a bit about Capgemini Netherlands and Capgemini worldwide. We are large companies which have a strong presentation in over 39 countries, and we employ 115,000 employees. 35% of those work for us offshore, which means for us working for us in Poland and in India. Capgemini Netherlands has currently 5,600 employees who are divided into 4 major disciplines. These are the consulting services discipline, local professional services, outsourcing services, and technology services. All these disciplines are divided into sectors, and which in their turn are divided into practices. A bit about myself. I joined Capgemini in 1998, first for the payroll department. I became coordinator of the pensions and insurances team, and in 2009 I joined the ImageNow project for our HR department, for which I'm currently working, and I'm also involved in other ImageNow projects within Capgemini Netherlands. Now, why did we choose for ECM and why did we choose Perceptive Software? First of all, why did we choose ECM? Well, we had our paper employee files stored into 2 separate places. We had one file at the practices secretary. This file contained documents about appraisals, personal development plans, every agreement that has been made with our employee. And we had one paper file stored at the payroll department, and this file that contained documents of pensions, insurances, and other payouts to employees. So we had for each employee 2 separate files, which means about over 11,000 paper files on our premises. Another thing was a new way of working, which is heavily promoted by Capgemini. This means that employees will be able to work from any place, anytime, anywhere, and join Capgemini through logging on to the Capgemini website. Also, we have, as I already told you, we have offshoring processes. We have a lot of HR processes and payroll processes offshored to India. These people obviously also need the documents. Another thing is that our pay files were only accessible during office hours. So if a manager needed a document, he only could have access to it during the office hours, which clashed a bit with our new way of working, which asked employees to work from home. Another thing was that our HR processes and also our auditing processes were very time-consuming. Whenever an audit took place, we had to go through all the paper files to check whether certain documents were available or not. The last thing was the Dutch legislation, which required the storage for documents only for a limited number of years. This meant that we had to go through the files every year to check whether a document had expired or not, which is obviously a very time-consuming process, which we did not process every year. So this were all for us good reasons to go for enterprise content management and for digitalizing our employee files. Now, why did we choose Perceptive Software? We didn't, Capgemini Netherlands, of course, didn't know Perceptive Software yet, but our colleagues from Capgemini UK had very good experience with Perceptive. Another thing was that Perceptive had very friendly and above very skilled professionals. Whenever there was a problem, they could tackle it very quickly, and they could help us with anything we asked for. The best feature of ImageNow was that it was easy to use, as I will show you later on. It has a very easy to use menu. If you want to teach your secretary how to use it, it takes you about 20 minutes, and she knows all about the program. Another important thing for us was that the system was very flexible. If Capgemini buys a system, we immediately come up with about 35 other things we want to do with the system, and we wanted a system to be able to handle this. ImageNow could provide us with that. Another thing, second thing was that we wanted it to customize it to our own requirements. As I will show you later on, we have a folder and subfolder structure in our system in which we store our documents. This wasn't available at the time, and we asked Perceptive to build it for us. It was quite a challenge for them, but they managed to build it for us, so customize it to our own expectations. And what was very important for us as well is that it had regular new features, and which we're going to implement as well, as I will show you later on. We had some very critical success factors and objectives we really wanted the Perceptive to handle for us, or otherwise we would not go ahead with Perceptive. One thing was that we wanted one file for each employee. As I already told you, we had two separate files. We wanted it to combine into one. Another thing was that we wanted to have easy access to the file, not only by the employee himself or herself, but also for managers and secretaries, which meant that we need an authorization structure in the system, and we wanted to have to be very rigid. Our legal department really demanded that although people could have access to a file, they should not have access to all documents in the file, and Perceptive managed to build this for us. And third thing was the Dutch legislation, as I already told you, about the storage of the documents for a certain number of years. Another thing was that we wanted to be able to store our paper files that already existed, as well as we wanted to be able to upload new documents ourselves. We did not want to ask a third party to do that for us. We wanted to do it ourselves, and for this we are using currently our multifunctional printers. We wanted also to incorporate the system with our workflow processes. We have a lot of HR and payroll work processes which we are wanting to transfer into workflow processes into ImageNow. We are currently working on that. I will tell you later on about that. And our main point was, it's this last point, but it's a very important point for us. We did not want to buy a whole new employee system. We did not want to buy another payroll system. We wanted to be compatible with our existing system, which was SAP HR. So, well, we had a lot of questions. We really had a business case. I already told you we had our sensitive information in our files. People could have access to the paper files, which obviously were stored in separate places, and although they were locked into cupboards, in theory people could have access to these files. So we had to do with the Personal Data Protection Act, the time-consuming paper processes. We had labor-intensive management reports. If an employee changed from one practice to another, we literally had to move the physical paper file from one department to another. So we had a real business case to implement a digital system. Now, of course, if you have a business case, your company has to pay for it. So they tried to make some costs for us. They calculated the cost of what it would cost us to handle a file, our pay-per-clicks, our papers, the number of FTEs, and we estimated that it would cost us a huge amount of money just to handle the paper files. And so we tried to figure out how much we would benefit from digitizing our system, and we made a calculation for that for the next coming 10 years. In the first year, of course, it will only cost you money because you have to invest in a system, and of course you have to start up the project, deal with the people. So in the first year, of course, it will only cost you. But we estimated that in 10 years' time, going digital, it would save us over 7 million euros, and that's a lot of money for us. So our company gave us to go ahead to implement a digital system. When we were giving the go ahead for the system, we started to set up the plan. We started to set up the project, getting to involvement of the people. We involved our HR department, our secretaries, members of the legal departments, the managers, and the project team itself. And we set up 3 workshops in which we designed the system itself, in which we designed how we wanted it to look like, who would maintain the documents, who would maintain the system, who would upload documents, what were the consequences of this. In all these workshops we discussed everything that had to do with the whole project and the consequences of this project. What we did then was we came up with a structure, a file and folder structure, in which we merged the 2 files, the paper file which was at the practice department and the paper file which was at the payroll department. And we came up with a folder structure which has 7 main folders. In this we have a number of subfolders, and in these subfolders we have stored the documents. We have stored 70 document types. We did not want to have more document types because this means people would guess which document type they would have to choose. So we had a very limited number of document types. Another thing is that we did not choose not to have documents that were called others or miscellaneous, because this would mean that people would store only the documents in that document type and do not use the document types they were supposed to use. During the determination of all these document types, we also registered how many years a document would have to be stored, as well as who would have access to which document. After we set up this workshop and we planned those workshops, we had set up our business requirements and we handed them to Perceptive Software, so they started building the program for us. During that, we did not sit still. We created our own wiki page on our intranet for our employees, but not only for them, also for the managers, the secretaries, and the HR departments who would be using ImageNow. We created short e-learning modules, short 1-minute films about how people could have access to their files, how they would open a document, how managers could have access to the files of their own employees. Apart from that, we contracted a company who would store the documents for us, and with this I mean the already existing paper documents. We had about 6,000 files which had to be scanned. We did not want to do this ourselves, so we contracted a party. A quick view of the timeline. In the early months of 2009, we asked Perceptive Software to implement ImageNow at Capgemini Netherlands. A month later, we decided on which company would scan the documents for us, and another month later, in May, we handed the Perceptive Software the functional requirements. Another thing we did during those months afterwards was training the key users, which was something that was done by Perceptive Software. They flew over 2 trainers to train several people from Capgemini Netherlands and 1 from Capgemini India to get to the grips on ImageNow and to be able to train other users within Capgemini. Another thing we did was telling our secretaries how to clean the paper files. We did not want to store all documents into ImageNow, for instance, birth certificates or something, or wedding cards of employees. We did not want to store them, so they had to be removed from the files. We asked the secretaries to do that beforehand, before we handed this to the scanning party. Another thing, which was a very important thing for us, was informing our employees. We kept informing our employees from day one, from the start of the project itself to the very first going live of their file. In September 2009, Perceptive Software started the building. It took them about 4 months to build it to our own requirements, which I believe now is quite long. They do it much quicker nowadays. In January 2010, we could start the user acceptance tests for ImageNow, and it was implemented quite quickly. In April, we could already start the user training sessions and ship the first documents to the scanning party who would start scanning the documents for us. Our first e-file was live in July 2010, and after scanning 6,000 files in March 2011, all the paper documents were scanned and the backlog scanning was closed successfully. Now, what were our successes? As we said, we had a lot of paper files. Over 6,000 files, over 1 million pages have been scanned into ImageNow. Each employee has now access to his own e-file. This file can be accessed from anywhere. All files are also accessible for those who are authorized to the file, such as managers, secretaries, and people from the HR and payroll departments. This access is all based on an authorization profile, so no one can have access to files he is not able to have access to. Authorization changes are transferred overnight. We have our authorization structure built into our core HR system, which is SAP. When an authorization of an employee changes, an interface will run from SAP to ImageNow, and the details will be transferred overnight. So if a manager becomes a manager of a new employee, he will, and it is registered in SAP today, he will have access to the employee file tomorrow. And the old manager obviously does not have access to the file anymore. And what we are currently doing now, and what we have done over the last year, is storing our documents ourselves into ImageNow. We have now, since the go live, we have uploaded over 65 documents already. Our plans for the future, we have a lot of plans for the future, and some have already been into production and some are on their way. We want to expand our current solutions into ImageNow. We want to do mass import of ImageNow. Capgemini sends emails regularly to their employees on a regular basis. We send about 6,000 letters to all employees, which contain individual information for each employee. We do not want to import those documents one by one. We want them to upload in as a mass import. ImageNow provides a mass import solution, which we are currently testing on our user acceptance environment, and we're hoping to implement them on the production environment in December this year. Another thing is the full text search, which allows you to look for certain specific words in documents in ImageNow. We are thinking of implementing this in December this year as well. We will be installing a report server, which creates reports from ImageNow and the content of ImageNow, as well as another interface between another reporting system, which is a management reporting system, which gives us even more information about the content of ImageNow. Another thing we are currently working on is, which is still in its preliminary stages, is transferring our current HR processes into ImageNow HR workflow processes, which also involves implementing digital signatures. And the final thing is, well, it's not really final because we have a lot of plans for the future, but for now is our retention policy, which we would like to be implementing. Other areas within Capgemini Netherlands which are currently using ImageNow on our production environments is our financial shared service center. This allows our employees to upload their timesheets. This is needed for customers who require a timesheet of an employee when we invoice this customer. The timesheet they need as a proof that our employee has really worked for them. We used to do this on paper, but now we ask our employees to upload this timesheet into ImageNow so we can process our invoices quicker, and which means quicker cash flow for us. Another thing is the electronic invoicing, which has been implemented. It's in its early phase, but we have several large customers for which we are delivering electronic invoicing, which will be returned into ImageNow as an electronic invoice. We also have currently implemented 6 e-forms. Capgemini has about 80 forms which will be transformed into e-forms. 6 have been implemented, another 3 are coming up. The 4th project is storing contracts, which is in the user acceptance phase currently. In this stage we are importing documents which had to do with contract files, delivery files and proposal files. All the documents that belong in those files we want to store in ImageNow, and it's the framework of a much larger financial project. And the last project we are currently working on is the assignment support project. This is where all the assignment of the employees who work for customers are stored. This is currently a paper process. We wanted to digitize this process, so it's a large workflow process in which a lot of departments are involved, and also this project is in its final stages. That's it from me. If you have any questions, please contact me on the details provided.